What's up, everybody? Welcome to Sports Magazine Collector. I'm Brad. I just got a new CGC slab in the mail today. I've wanted this one for a long time. I'm going to show it off. We're going to talk about it. Let's go. All right, guys, today I am pretty excited because I finally got my hands on probably the number one issue that I have most wanted since I got into this hobby. So when I first started into this hobby of collecting Sports Illustrated, I pretty much made a list of the top 5 or 6 issues that I really wanted for my collection, and I just knew that I had to have. And I'm not talking about the big dogs. I'm not talking about, the Michael Jordan, Wayne Gretzky, Mickey Mantle first cover, that type of stuff. Obviously, I want those, but those are more of, hey, these are probably the most valuable, most iconic issues. I'm talking my list of just most, personally important issues, the issues that have personal meaning to me, because either the moment that's depicted on the cover or the athlete, it's one of my favorite athletes on the cover. So I had a list of about 5 or 6, and I'm not going to go through and name them because I have been able to find now all of them. This was the last one. And the first 3 or 4, I was able to find fairly quickly within the first couple months. But there were 2 in particular that, man, they were like white elephants. That's not the word I'm looking for, but um, um, I couldn't find them. I could not find them at newsstand. So the other one I did finally find about a month ago, and was able to purchase that raw, and it's with CGC right now. And then the last one, I still to this day haven't really seen any newsstand issues of it, but one popped up that had already been graded on eBay last week, and I knew that I had to go all in to get it because I'm telling you, I've been looking for this night and day. I have been looking for this issue night and day. Literally every single day for the past 6 months, I have searched at least 2 or 3 times every day for this issue. And I've searched high and low. Obviously, I've looked on eBay. I've looked in every nook and cranny of the internet, any website I could ever find that has ever sold a Sports Illustrated. I could not find it. And up until about a month ago, 0 copies of this issue had ever even been graded on CGC. And to me, this is a pretty big issue, and I'm going to go through and talk about why. Not only why it's an important and a meaningful issue for me, but I think it's actually it's beyond just being personal for me. This is a significant issue, and to me, it's one of the most underrated. And I'm going to talk a lot about that in this video. But seriously, every day, at least multiple times a day for the past 6 months, I could not find this issue anywhere. And then in the past month, 2 have all of a sudden popped up on CGC, and one of them got posted on eBay. I went all in for it. I got it. I have it here, and so this is what I'm going to share with you today. All right, this is big for me, and so here's the issue that I got. All right, this is Tennis Epic, Rafael Nadal and Roger Federer first cover. This is from July 14th, 2008. This is widely considered to be like the greatest tennis match of all time, when Rafael Nadal beat Roger Federer in a just a marathon of a tennis match in the Wimbledon final in 2008. Rafael Nadal is one of my favorite athletes ever. I've shared with you before, Kobe Bryant. Honestly, Kobe Bryant and Rafael Nadal are probably my 2 favorite athletes. And I get it. Tennis is not huge in the US. It's definitely not what it once was. But for me, I love tennis. I play tennis all the time. Love to watch tennis. Rafael Nadal has been my favorite tennis player since I was in high school, since before this issue. This was actually my senior year in high school, or actually I had just graduated my senior year when this issue came out. But I've loved him ever since I started watching him, mainly because just his athleticism initially, you know, in those early days just blew me away. The way he would be able to chase down every single ball, his competitiveness. The dude never quits. He is one of the most ferocious competitors I've ever seen. I mean, if you haven't watched Rafael Nadal play tennis, even if you're not a tennis fan, you need to, because the dude just has a heart of a champion. And I love watching him play. So absolutely admire him as an athlete. He's either number one or number two all time for me, on my list of favorites. And if you don't believe me, check this out. Check it out. Rafa Nadal right here in my man cave. Got a poster on my wall. I'm not lying to you. He's one of my favorite athletes. Actually, let's just rotate this over. There's Kobe. All right, there's my two favorite athletes. Lots more here in my man cave. I may save that for another video, but just want to prove to you guys I'm not making this up. I am a huge Rafael Nadal fan. All right, so you guys understand why this is a personally important issue for me. Like I said, Nadal, one of my favorite athletes. But let me talk a little bit about why, putting all that aside and trying to be totally unbiased here, I think this is such an underrated issue. I think this is a massive issue, okay? And so here's why I think that. Number one, you do not very often get a cover where you have two athletes who are both prominently featured, and it's the first cover for both. And they're superstar athletes. All right, it's really rare. I just talked, I put a countdown out recently of 1950s, the top issues from the 1950s. I talked about how there's a cover with Luis Aparicio and Nellie Fox and the significance of that. It's the first cover for both of them. You've got the Willie Mays first cover, which also has Leo DeRocher. He's a manager, you know, not to downplay his accomplishments, but that's just not quite as collectible to me. I mean, obviously the Willie Mays part is, but there's not a ton of issues out there where you have two major superstars and it's the first cover for both of them on the same issue. This to me is one of the biggest examples of that. Once again, I get it. Tennis in the United States is not huge. Still pretty popular, but it's, you know, way behind football, basketball, baseball, even hockey, maybe even soccer at this point. But tennis worldwide, these athletes worldwide, Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal, massive. I mean, enormous worldwide superstars. I mean, we're talking, these are two of the most well-known, famous, popular athletes in the entire world, and of all time. I mean, I got to thinking, if we're going beyond just the US frame of mind and we're thinking worldwide, international fame for athletes, who are the athletes of all time that would be more well known than Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal? Okay, and I came up with a list of a few. This is my own personal list, and you know, feel free to comment and let me know who I'm leaving off, or if you think I'm way off on this. But okay, Michael Jordan, obviously, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James. To me, those are the three basketball guys that just worldwide, global superstars. You know, and guys like Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Wilt Chamberlain. You got to remember, the NBA was not a global game back then like it is now. Like it kind of became once Michael Jordan entered the fold, and then even more with Kobe and LeBron. Muhammad Ali, worldwide, I think, you know, just about everyone knows of Muhammad Ali. You got to think soccer: Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi, Pele. That's the list that I came up with off the top of my head, that immediately I would put a notch above Federer and Nadal worldwide. Now, there were some other guys that I think probably globally would be on a similar stage from those names. Guys like Tiger Woods, Usain Bolt, Neymar, maybe even a David Beckham or Diego Maradona. But I think that Federer and Nadal are on that level internationally, just when you look at what they've done. And I kind of looked up some lists. I was very, very curious to see, are there any lists out there that list, you know, most globally famous athletes? I found a couple. ESPN actually put out a World Fame athlete list in 2017. Federer came in at number 4. The only guys above him were Ronaldo, LeBron, and Messi. and Nadal came in at 9. And ahead of him, they had Phil Mickelson, which to me was a little interesting, Neymar, Usain Bolt, and then Kevin Durant, which also, I don't know, I'm a little curious about that one as well. And that was in 2017. That was 5 years ago. Since then, Nadal has, even more upped his status. I mean, Federer has only won maybe one or two more. He's probably won a couple more slams since 2017, but Nadal, I mean, he's now the all-time leader in Grand Slams. He's won 22. Federer's won 20. And actually, Novak Djokovic has also jumped Federer. He's at 21. He's only one behind Nadal. He's just not as likable as those two guys. For as talented he is, don't get me wrong, he is ridiculously good at tennis, but he's a little more controversial. He's a little more of a villain to some. Nadal and Federer are almost universally loved. So that was a list in 2017. Had Federer at 4, had Nadal at 9. I found one from last year, from 2021. It was from Business Insider India. Had Federer at 5 and Nadal at 9, so still pretty similar. I also saw a list from this year, from just a few months ago in 2022, that listed athletes, worldwide athletes, in order by who had the most social media followers, looking at all the social media platforms. Federer came in at 7, Nadal came in at 8. So, they're in the top 10 of all these lists I'm finding. And I mean, the guys, they're huge. Let's talk about some of their accomplishments, because some of you may not be as familiar with tennis. So Federer, he's from Switzerland. I mean, he just dominated tennis for a long time. And then, when Nadal and Djokovic came on the scene, then they kind of, chiseled their own spot into there. And it was just those three. It's been those three for pretty much the last 20 years that have dominated tennis. But Federer was ranked the #1 player for 310 weeks, including a record 237 consecutive weeks. Like I said, he's won 20 Grand Slams, and 8 of those are Wimbledon. He's won the most Wimbledon championships of all time, and that's probably the most prestigious. Federer has a career record of 1,251 wins versus 275 losses. He's earned $130 million in prize money. In 2021, he was actually #1 on the Forbes list of highest paid athletes of any athlete. He was the first ever tennis player to top that list. And he's been on the cover of 3 Sports Illustrateds and then also 3 SI Chinas. So major superstar internationally. Nadal, he's from Spain. He has been ranked as the #1 player for 209 weeks. Like I said, he's won 22 Grand Slams, which as of now is the record for men. I think in all time, he's only 2 behind, I want to say Serena Williams, I think has 24 to lead the women. And Nadal's won the French Open 14 times, which is pretty much the record of like any individual championship in any sport of all time. In fact, I think I've seen the only one who has matched that is like Joey Chestnut with the hot dog eating contest. Kind of funny. I think he's won that 14 times, same number that Nadal's won the French Open. So that's insane. He has won what's called a double career slam. So he's won all 4 of the major slam tournaments, each twice. Federer has not done that because he's only won the French once because Nadal's dominated that so much, but Nadal's won them all twice. $131 million in prize money. His career record is 1,063 wins versus 213 losses. This is his only Sports Illustrated cover. And then he also was on 3 SI China covers as well. So once again, these two are huge. It would be really difficult for anyone at this point to argue that Federer and Nadal, along with Djokovic, are not 2 of the 3 greatest tennis players of all time. I mean, Rod Laver, was up there. Obviously, guys like Sampras and Agassi, but they have now so far exceeded like their total of Grand Slam championships won that it's just really would be hard for anyone to even debate anymore that it's not these guys. So they're massive. And like I said, just when you think about it globally, it doesn't get much bigger than that. And this is the first cover for both of them. I mean, the first cover for Rafael Nadal or the first cover for Roger Federer would be super collectible. You got them both on there together, and it's a really great photo that shows both of them. It was, like I said, it's considered the greatest tennis match in the history of tennis at this point. It's just an awesome issue. I think it is super underrated. I would probably put it and this is going to sound crazy to some people, I'd probably put it in my top 50 all-time list. We'll see. I'll be coming out with that list down the road after I count down all the decades, but you will be hard-pressed to show me an issue in the history of Sports Illustrated that has two athletes of bigger stature and it's their first cover, both on the same issue. So this one, like I said, has only been graded 2 times, and they both have just popped up in the last month. There's an 8.5, which is this one, and then there's a 9.0. Man, I want that 9.0. If you've got the 9.0, if you were watching this video and you've got that 9.0, please contact me. My email is in the bio, or it's in the description, because I'll trade you this 8.5 plus something else. We can talk my other issues. We can maybe talk some money, but I want that 9.0 because, like I said, Nadal is my guy. And I knew from day one that this was one I had to absolutely have in my collection. Now, let me tell you guys a little story real quick now that I've gone through why this issue is so awesome for me and why I think it's really an underrated issue. I did actually find one newsstand of this. About 2 or 3 months ago, during one of my multi-time per day searching for it, one popped up. It was on a website called Press Pass Collectibles, and it was a newsstand issue. It had been autographed by Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal, and it had been authenticated by PSA. I wanted that issue bad. The price was pretty hefty, but I was going to buy it. I'm not going to share that in case my wife watches this video someday. I'm not going to share what the price was, but I wanted it. And I just happened to be on that day in the middle of transferring some funds from one account to another. So I didn't have enough basically liquid disposable at that second to buy it. And I knew that issue would not last up there very long because, once again, just how rare this is in newsstand alone, and then to have it autographed by both of these, once again, 2 of the biggest international superstars of all time. It was awesome, and I wanted it. I was literally refreshing my bank account and refreshing the Press Pass Collectibles page every 5 minutes to see if the issue is still available and to see if my funds had been transferred. And as you've probably guessed, it got sold before I had the funds transferred into my account. Man, I may have entered a little depression after that. I still am pretty salty about it. I wanted that bad. I wanted it really, really, really bad. I do have a handful of autographed newsstand Sports Illustrated issues. I'll show a video of those at some point. I am not sending them in to be graded right now. Waiting until there's a little bit of a better option as far as the autographed issues. But yeah, I'll never forget that one that got away, the Nadal and Federer first cover autographed. But anyway, I do want to make one more point about this that I forgot to mention earlier. When you look at those vintage issues, the 50s and the 60s, the Mantles and the Alis and the Willie Mays and, those types of first covers, obviously the rarity of those in newsstand is extremely high, and it's hard to get those. But I think that there is a little bit of what I would call a sweet spot of modern issues that also are pretty rare and hard to find in newsstand. That sweet spot, to me, I would say somewhere between like the 2008 to 2015 range. And here's what I mean by that. All right. Sports Illustrated was pretty much at its peak of popularity in like the mid to late 80s, maybe even early 90s. So those newsstand issues, while they're still awesome and they are still rare and hard to get, but there were a lot more people getting them, okay? Because you also have to think about how people consumed news at the time. The internet wasn't really a thing yet that people did, all right? the internet really started to take over and kick printed publications out, I would say in like the early to mid 2000s. So once again, I said 2008, and that's the year that this issue came out. Okay, once again, that was my senior year in high school. All right, um, that was the year that I joined Facebook. Okay, I remember what things were like, and I had a subscription to Sports Illustrated all growing up, but things were really changing. People were no longer consuming printed publications. Newspapers started really losing a lot of traction. Everyone was starting to read everything online. Even like Sports Center, man, growing up, Sports Center on ESPN was the coolest thing. I would get up every single morning and watch it, and then I'd watch it again, the exact same episode. Um, but around this time, like 2008-ish, even that started to dwindle, and it lost kind of some of its glamour because everything was so readily available on the internet. How many people were going out there and buying newsstand copies of these issues between 2008 and 2015? There just weren't that many of them. There just weren't that many people going out and buying those. Newsstand racks were even starting to shrink or go away during that time period. And I ended at 2015 because I think, over the past few years, some people have started to pick up a little bit on this hobby, and there've been a handful of collectors who will go out and they'll intentionally buy these newsstands to keep them. But to me, there's that little window there that I'm calling a sweet spot of modern issues, 2008 to 2015, and this is 100% subjective, just based on my own observations, but it's kind of hard to find some of the big newsstand copies from that era because not a lot of people were buying Sports Illustrated, at least not compared to the 80s and the 90s. So just another reason why I think, once again, this is a top issue. But regardless of that, I'm holding on to this one forever, at least until I can upgrade. I'd really like a 9 or higher, just because I really respect Roger Federer, but Rafael Nadal is, I mean, he's one of the greatest for me. So, hey, appreciate you watching. I know tennis is not everybody's thing, but I think it's fun showing off these slabs, and hopefully you think this one's as cool as I do. This is definitely a PC personal collection keeper for me. One of only 2 graded in the world right now. More will pop up. And like I said, I'll be looking for a 9 or higher. So keep your eyes peeled for me, guys, because my Rafa love runs deep. All right, thanks for watching. See you. All right, real quick, we also got to do some trivia. So you may notice that in my videos, I always end it with a trivia question, and I always say, hey, first person to answer correctly will get a shout out in my next video. Well, so far I've only had one person actually answer my trivia question correctly. Actually, let's make that 2. I'm going to go ahead and give a shout out to Golden Stone 75. It was actually a couple videos ago, but he knew that Isaiah Thomas was the athlete who was on the cover in 1981 whenever Michael Jordan was featured on the inside of the magazine in the Faces in the Crowd. I had already recorded my next video whenever Golden Stone 75 answered that correctly, so I told him I'd give him a shout out in the next one. So that's what I'm doing. Thanks, Golden Stone 75, for watching and answering. But I know most of the time I'm asking these questions and I say, hey, I'll give shout outs, and I don't give shout outs. Well, that's because there's not a lot of people right now. This is still early in my YouTube channel. Not a lot of people are answering and leaving in the comments. But hey, you know what? One day there will be. I feel optimistic and determined. I'm having fun doing this. I'm going to keep doing it. And you know what? One day there will be people leaving comments and answering every question that I ask in these videos. So last week or last video, I posted the first cover for Larry Bird from 1977. Really cool issue. He's got 2 cheerleaders with him there from Indiana State, kind of like a pink circle in the background. And I said, hey, Sports Illustrated recreated this issue later on. And I asked which athlete was on the cover when they recreated this exact same image. And so the answer to that question was Doug McDermott, the great Dougie McBuckets. You got to remember, he played with Creighton. He was a star with Creighton. This issue came out in 2014. He ended up finishing his career as the 6th all-time leading scorer in NCAA men's basketball history. As you probably know, Pete Maravich is number 1, and he only played 3 seasons, which is absolutely insane that he's number 1 in 3 seasons. But Doug McDermott, they recreated that image from Larry Bird's first cover and put Doug on the cover with that image as well. So today's trivia question. I just went through my whole video on tennis, and so we're going to stick with that theme. The question is, which tennis player has been on the most weekly Sports Illustrated covers? If you know the answer or if you have a guess, leave a comment, and the first answer correctly will get a shout out in my next video. We'll see you guys later.